This is the story of your life. You've always been the perfect child for your parents. You were polite, you did your chores, you respected them, you got good grades, you never went through the so-called rebellious stage, you suppressed your real feelings just to make mom and dad happy, and it worked. They were very proud of you. But now that you're an adult, you're all fucked up and anxious. Because you became a people pleaser, a perfectionist who thinks too much and does too little. You have a lot of anger stored up in you, low self-esteem, you have difficulty making decisions, and you never feel good enough. Plus, your parents aren't even that proud of you anymore. Yeah, I know how that feels. In fact, there's even a name for that. The good child syndrome. And you know, when I was young, I remember that people used to say that I was an adult in the body of a child. All simply because I liked seeing my parents proud of me. Especially when some stranger would come up to them and say something like, "You got a really intelligent kid there. Congratulations, the two of you did a really good job." Because I remember that comments like that made their faces light up. And that simply meant the world to me. So after I grew up, I kept doing the exact same things. So I was still a loving, caring, good person, except that this time, it felt like people didn't congratulate me at all. And then it really hit me. Because I understood that as an adult, you're supposed to be kind, loving, and generous, and people will not stop their lives just to congratulate you for being a decent human being. Being good is just the least that's expected from you as a grown-up. And when you face this fact, you see that you have created a prison for yourself. Because as a child, people would shower you with all of these compliments and beautiful adjectives, such as, generous, kind, loving, intelligent, polite. And those words made you believe that they represented who you really were in essence. That's why you feel wrong or guilty when you're angry. Because in your mind, you're still that little child trying to suppress all of the negative emotions, afraid that you're not going to get approval from your parents if you really let them out. So if you observe this behavior, you see that to this day, you would rather hurt yourself than disappoint other people. Because you might be too afraid that if you do what you really want to do, people might call you selfish. Or even worse, they might come up to you and say that you're not the person that you used to be, that they don't recognize you anymore. And what a shame, right? I've felt this before, and it's a terrible feeling because in your mind, all you can think of is, please kill me, but don't say that I've disappointed you. It really hurts. But I'm telling you, you've got to break free from this prison for your own sake. I know I had to do it. I did it when I dropped out of college. And I can still remember that when I told my family that, some people were loving and understanding as to why I did what I did. But others, I remember seeing the look in their faces. And it was like they didn't say anything, but it was clear to me that they were thinking something like, "We had such high expectations on you. You could have made a name for yourself and for the family. But now that you dropped out, what are you going to do with your life?" Again, what a shame, what a disappointment you are. So what I'm saying is, if you don't break free from this prison now, you will become a dysfunctional adult. Because externally, you'll be like a grown-up, but internally, you will feel like a little child who seeks for approval from everybody else and who has to ask for permission to do whatever it is that they really want to do. And that's just sad, Okay, so how do you actually break free from this prison? Well, there are two things that you can do. The first one is that you have to understand that you haven't signed a contract with anybody saying that you're supposed to meet their expectation. And that includes especially your parents. However, as you probably know, to every rule there is an exception. And the exception to this one in particular is that you do have a contract with yourself that demands that above anything else, you must find a way to be happy. That means that you will definitely disappoint other people. But what can you do about it? Because what you do in regards to your life should matter only to you. Because whether or not you made good decisions, you're the only person who's gonna suffer the consequences. Therefore, it is only fair that you should be the one deciding your own destiny. And I know that this is really tough to understand because at times it may sound like I'm saying here that you should disrespect your parents, but that's not the case at all. In fact, I think you should love your parents unconditionally, but remember that above anything else, this is your life, and you have one responsibility with yourself, which is to make yourself happy, right? After all, remember, you have one contract signed only with yourself and not with anybody else. So you better honor this contract. And the second thing that you must understand is that you have to learn to say no. And again, I know this is a very difficult thing to do. I struggle with that myself all the time. Because growing up as a kid who wanted to please my parents, I know that you probably said yes to anything that they asked you to do. So if they asked you to cancel that hangout with your friends to go to your grandma's house, you would gladly do it. And that, my friend, unfortunately made you develop the idea that your wants and needs should come in first place. After all, you're such a kind, loving human being, right? So why not let everybody else do what they want, follow their dreams and passions, and maybe if you have time, then you can also pursue what you want in life. But that's not all. There is actually one more problem, which is, I guess, you feel like you will hurt people if you say no to them. But at some point, you have to understand that saying no doesn't mean that you dislike that person or that you don't care for their feelings. In fact, you can say no and love someone unconditionally. Because if they love you back, then they will understand it. Man, I feel like we've given the word no the wrong meaning. Because growing up as a kid who wanted to please their parents, you probably only wanted to hear them say yes. And occasionally when they had to say no to you, you felt like you were gonna die, like that was some kind of aggression, right? But that's not the case at all. It's time to understand that no is nothing but a word. Plus, you can say no to somebody else and still do that in a loving and caring and generous way. And that actually reminds me of my birthday last year, because I didn't want to have, this big party. I didn't even want to be around my friends. I just wanted to be with my family and to spend some quality time with them celebrating my birthday. So my mom came up to me and she said that she had invited a friend of the family to be there with us. And it really hurt me to say. It was really painful at that time, but I had to say no to my mom. So what I said was, Mom, I understand what you did and I thank you for that, but I simply don't want that person to be on my birthday. I love them, maybe we can hang out with them next weekend, but not on my birthday. On my birthday, I just want to be with you, Dad, my grandparents. Let's just enjoy this moment. And please, I ask you to call her. Give her a call and explain the situation. And if you feel like that's uncomfortable, then it's okay. I'll do it myself. I'll call her and I'll explain to her in a loving, caring, kind way that she's not supposed to go there, but that I still love her. And I'm sure that she will understand it and she'll be fine. She'll move on. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that unless you see that you haven't signed a contract with anybody saying that you're supposed to meet their expectations, and unless you understand that you have to learn to say no to other people, then you'll always be in that tiny, suffocating prison that you have created for yourself, full of those beautiful adjectives that you used to be called when you were a child. Having said that, I know that it is very difficult to follow these two apparently simple steps because you still feel like you are disappointing your parents. So I'd like to share with you something that I try to keep in mind because it might help you along the way. And that thing is that your parents love you even though they might disagree with some of your decisions. But if you're really happy and if you're making conscious decisions and you're getting some sort of enjoyment out of life, and if they can see the brightness in your eyes, then they will be proud of you. I guess what I'm trying to say is that the best way to make your parents proud is to first you be proud of who you are. If you really do that, then the rest will follow and everything will flow a little more easily.